Can I please have your attention? We are getting started with our next panel, so you all can please take a seat. I'll give you a minute to find a seat. Are we ready for our next panel? This is our last panel from RGV Startup Week, Day 3. Are we excited? Uy, no. I'm gonna ask again. Are we excited? Great. This panel, it's very important for us. We have a great moderator. The panel it's called Lead Different, Rethinking Leadership Today. You already know your moderator. I'm pretty sure I don't even need to introduce to you who is gonna be. But he is the executive director of the Brownsville Convention and Visitors Bureau and the Office of Space Commerce for the City of Brownsville. He is also an award-winning economic developer. He was named one of the North America's top 50 economic developers and Development Counselors International's top 40 under 40 in 2025. He previously led the eBridge Center for Business and Commercialization, right here, eBridge. And this is the largest startup incubator of its kind in the RGV. He's also the chair of the board of the Come Dream and Come Build. It's Texas' largest nonprofit affordable housing developer. Do you know who he is? I know you know. Can you please help me welcome Nathan Burkhart to the stage?
Thank you so much, Gracie. Give it up for our last panel, y'all. We have with us today a panel that's really going to be talking about rethinking leadership differently. And I'd like to welcome first and foremost to the stage, Rosa Esthela Mora. A McAllen native, originally from Mexico, multilingual in over 4 languages, has studied in Paris, Quebec, and Spain. We're going to hear from her about the global network of Spanish-speaking professional speakers that she's a part of and her intersection of education, storytelling, and international communication. Next, we have Juan Longoria with Director of Rental Support and Operations at Zillow. San Benito native with over 20 years across telecom and tech. Next, we have Hashim Elshafie, a UTRGV biology student who founded South Texas Frown Upside Down organization. And last but certainly not least, we have Mauricio Guajardo, a consultant with AMG Research. AMG Research is a Pittsburgh-based boutique market research consultancy founded in 1991 with 25 staff members working on market, product, and brand research. All right, so I gave you all a brief introduction, but I'd really like to give you all the opportunity to tell everyone here what it is that you do within those 4 organizations before I dive into some of these questions. And we'll start with you, Rosa.
Hello. I'm Rosa Esthela Mora. I'm an award-winning author. I'm the U.S. ambassador for the Red Mundial de Conferencistas. It's a global network of Latin American speakers around the world where we have presence in 28 countries in the world. And it's one of the largest global network for speakers. I am also a lecturer at UTSA, University of Texas San Antonio. I teach creative writing in Spanish. And I'm a writer, I'm a consultant for family and marriage. And I really care about leadership because even if it's not my main field, being who I am, I know what it is, the importance of being an effective leader, and I'm so honored and happy to be here.
Thank you, Rosa. Juan?
Hey everybody, my name's Juan Longoria. I currently lead the support teams for the rentals vertical at Zillow. Before that, I led the chat and messaging teams as the director of service for T-Mobile. I also lead a nonprofit here in the Valley called Rev JLO. We don't advertise a lot, but we're the neighborhood's charity. If you need help with anything, come over to my nonprofit. We'll find a way to help you. And we just started a new business called Uncommon Operations, which I will share more details about online if you find me. But I'm glad to be here, honored to be here. And Yeah, leadership's super important to me too. I think maybe it's my altruistic nature. I've always found that when you have a good leader, it makes a lot of things easier. At least it has for me in my life and the success that I've had. So at this point in my life, I want to give back to those. And my grandfather used to always tell me that when you can do something well, find a way to make it easier for others to do the same. And that's what I hope to do now at this point in my career. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Juan. Hashim?
Hello, my name is Hashim Elshafie. I am the founder and executive director of South Texas Frown Upside Down, a youth-led nonprofit organization here in the Rio Grande Valley focused on planting the seed of passion for community service in local youth to better local, national, and international communities. Basically, we're focused on being an outlet for youth to help the community in ways they want to. That ties in directly with leadership. I am a student here in RGV, and it is so hard to find opportunities for leadership and ways to learn how to be a better leader. So that's kind of why I'm so honored and excited to be here today.
Thank you, Hashim. Mauricio?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mauricio Guajardo. First of all, thank you for inviting me to be part of this great panel. I spent most of my career with Xerox Corporation in different positions of leadership, and that's where I realized that there's a big need to really talk about what it is to be a leader and how we form leaders going forward, not just for ourselves, but for the people that we leave in place there. So I'm very happy to be here, and I hope this is something that you can take away some good stuff out of this. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So I'm going to toss the first question over to you, Rosa. And you had mentioned your background as a counselor. As such, you've sat with people in their hardest moments. How does that shape how you lead a classroom, a team, or even a stage of a company?
We're going to start right away with I forgot. I think I have a purpose being here, and I'm going to give right away the message. Being an effective leader, I've discovered in my daily life as an educator, as a counselor, as a mom, as a wife, just as a human, that an effective leader is the one who has the ability to feel compassion. And compassion, sometimes there's a misconception about it. And compassion means I have the ability to put myself in other person's shoes. And I can listen to them with all my attention to be able to understand, and from that understanding, be able to negotiate and reach a point. So I think that the effectiveness of being a leader comes from the fact that you discover yourself in the other person, and you make the decision to treat them with respect, with the utmost respect, and that you are there for them, to serve them, and to contribute to their lives.
Thank you. And Juan, the next question for you. I'm kind of piggybacking on that. You've managed teams across BPOs, vendors, continents. What's the hardest leadership lesson you've had to learn that you can't particularly be taught from a course or a class?
The hardest leadership lesson to learn is that you have to find a way to be flexible when it comes to the people that you're in charge of, and they don't always report to you. When I led at T-Mobile, I had 7,000 global FTE at BPOs, meaning they worked for other companies that supported my line of business that I was accountable to our leaders at T-Mobile. So not having direct control over people makes your job a little bit more difficult. I'm a big practitioner of situational leadership too. I think I was very fortunate to learn that style of leading younger in my career, my leadership career, but it taught me how to be flexible and how to remember that no matter how effective somebody is at the job they have today, if you give them a new task, especially it's relevant now with AI, people revert to a level of development that's non-existent, meaning think about the first time you learned something new. You weren't good at it, no matter how good at it you are now. At that point, you didn't need a leader to tell you, hey, good job, you're going to get it, and they leave. You need somebody to say, I need you to do step 1, step 2, step 3, to teach you how to do it and bring you on that journey. Sometimes when we start our leadership journeys, we think that because we were really good at the job or the task we were doing, that's more than likely why you became a leader in that area. Somebody said, you know what you're doing, we need you to step up. You don't realize, or you don't get taught, that there's a lesson in how to lead versus how to be an expert. You're no longer the expert. It's your job to make more experts and ensure their well-being at work, and to a certain extent outside of work as well, right? When they go home, what are they saying about their job? How does that impact their daily lives? How does that impact the way they influence your potential customers or clients? So that was a easier lesson for me to learn because I had the right leaders at the time, but one that I see far too often isn't focused on enough by the leaders of those newer, younger leaders.
Thank you, Juan. Well, speaking of young leaders, Hashim, you started a nonprofit at 19. Most people at that age are still trying to figure out their major. You said you started South Texas Frown Upside Down because peers were doing community service for resumes instead of for joy. How do you build a culture where people actually want to show up? And I feel like this question is really important because your generation is now entering the workforce en masse.
Yes, definitely. So I actually started South Texas Frown Upside Down at 17 while in high school, and that's exactly when everyone's trying to get into college and really focusing on service for their benefit rather than what service is supposed to be, which is exactly why South Texas Frown Upside Down was started. From there, I was looking for ways for South Texas Frown Upside Down to be a real benefit for the community. There's already organizations that support specific causes, but nothing specifically for students and youth and the community in general to find ways for them to benefit the community in ways that they want to. Like I had said earlier, that's really the whole purpose of South Texas Frown Upside Down. In terms of building a culture in which people show up, it's all about not micromanaging, not saying this is how everything is going to go, but fostering a community in which team members and collaborators feel ownership over the projects, whether that's allocating responsibilities for a certain event or a certain meeting or a segment of a meeting even. Just allowing everyone to put in their 2 cents to do something that they're passionate about in a way that they want and a way that they want to see.
Thank you, Hashim. Mauricio, as a researcher, you spend your time helping leaders make better decisions with evidence. What's the gap you see most often between what the data says and what leaders actually do?
I think the gap usually is in understanding what it is that you're trying to bring across to them. At Xerox, I was in analytics, and many times the question will be, why is the team struggling? They're struggling because they're not doing this, they're not doing that. You look at the data, but the data tells you one part of it, and I remember one very specific instance in which my background as a field manager really made a difference in the perception that the VP service of that region had of their service technicians, which was not positive because he felt that the data was telling them one thing. What wasn't really there was the nuance. And when we were talking earlier about AI, this is very critical. Data is important, but the data has to be interpreted. And when it is interpreted by somebody that actually knows the business, you can bring in a real insight to tell the person, this is happening because of this and because of this, but the core issue is this. And it can be something that no one would ever imagine from the data. And that's the gap.
Mauricio, still on that same question, if you could give every CEO or even an entrepreneur here one question to ask themselves every morning, what would it be?
What am I doing to serve the people that I lead? And it's not just the employees, it's the customers, it's the company, it's the community. I think that we have to be really laser focused that what we are doing should have a real impact. I have been, unfortunately, and I'm sure we've all been there, where the leadership tells us, this is what we're going to do, but they don't walk the walk. They don't walk the talk, rather. And that is very critical, to actually lead by the example, getting up every day, supporting the team, meaning your words and acting on those words. It is far critical. The most important thing, I believe, that a leader can do to inspire the confidence that he has taken us all in the right direction and he's going to support us. And it's not just to do what I'm telling you to do. It is very important to support people when you empower them, like Hashim was saying. They're going to make mistakes. And one of the first instincts of a lot of people is to go and play the blame game. That always disempowers people and makes them not want to contribute ever again. It's very important for the leadership to be cognizant that people are going to make mistakes. And when that happens, nothing is going to, there's not going to be a ton of bricks falling on them. You're encouraging them to make the decision. When they make a mistake, then you support him and you find out why this didn't work. And most importantly, I have found, why did you think this was a good idea? If you don't ask why a wrong decision was made, then you're not going to avoid that decision the next time. And it's a very hard conversation to have. I had it, why did you think this was a good idea? And they get defensive. I'm like, no. I'm not assigning blame. I want to know, why did you think this was a good idea instead of something else? And once you understand how they think, you're better able to lead them and to help them become good leaders.
On that same note about serving and trying to think about what people think, Hashim, a lot of older leaders are worried about Gen Z in the workplace. From the inside, what do you think your generation actually wants from leaders, and what are people wrong about your generation?
I think something that people do get wrong about Gen Z is that we're lazy. Something that I've witnessed firsthand is that there are so many students in my community, in my school, in the schools that I've gone to, visited, and collaborated, students that I've collaborated with. There's so much energy that is untapped. We just want to be tapped, I guess. That's the best way to say it. We want to be heard, we want to be seen. That's what we want from the leaders and the generations before us, to see us for who we are, for what we know, for who we will become, and to allow us that opportunity to use our minds, to use our creativity, to give ideas that have never been heard before because they have never been thought before. That's really what is best.
On that note about teaching or embedding youth as being leaders, Juan, you had testified in Austin for competency-based education. What does that policy fight tell us about how legacy institutions or school districts need to rethink talent and leadership pipelines?
Foundationally, one of the things that I think is important to realize is how much talent is not just in our youth, but in the Rio Grande Valley. I'm inspired every day by graduating seniors and kind of the kids in college right now. I say kids because I'm 46 now. I think what we have to look at as the world is changing, we have to learn how to appreciate and understand how people's development and abilities are changing with it. AI is something that, for my kids, they're 9 and 10, they're going to grow up with their whole lives. They're going to understand much differently than we do today, as much as a cell phone is common in my hand. When I testified, I think at the time, and it wasn't that long ago, but at the time, for me, Western Governors University was a solution because I was traveling the globe in the job I had for T-Mobile in the Philippines and India. A brick and mortar school wouldn't work for me to get my MBA. So I wanted to make sure that other kids that were in my situation, kids that did it in school, who were working, couldn't afford a traditional brick and mortar college, that the state would help them in some capacity. But that also got me thinking about how times have changed and how these online schools are becoming more prevalent, but also how degrees are becoming more common, which is a great thing to see the education and graduation rates rising. But at some point, that becomes less of a differentiator in the job place. Everyone has a bachelor's, everyone has an MBA that's applying for some of these roles. So it's an important lesson to learn as a leader at work and outside of work is how to help people differentiate themselves for the jobs that are coming up, because there's not a lot of them, especially when you start looking at advancing your career. And when you have employees that want to step up into that frontline manager role, invest in them to teach them how to be successful in that role. For those that are raising their hand to say, I want to be a manager, you don't know what talent you have there if you don't explore it. So give them the option. If they're taking that first step to confide in you as a leader or as an owner or a founder to say, I want to be the leader of the future for you, give them that time back. You'll be pleasantly surprised with what you get out of it.
Thank you, Juan. Speaking about differentiation, Rosa, you lead across 3 roles that most people would treat as separate: educator, author, international ambassador for a global speaker network. What does leadership look like when it's not tied to a title or organization chart?
To me, that's true leadership. When you have the ability to see yourself as a leader in your daily life. We don't need a title to be leaders. I bet each of us right here, we are leaders in some extent. When I became a mom, it was very clear for me that I was a leader. And in this case, I was leading the people I love the most. So I needed to make sure I was leading them with my heart, with my mind, and that I was being the leader they need. And I think that's the biggest challenge we have nowadays with leadership, that sometimes we think it's about a title, sometimes we think it's about being a figure of authority, but I think it's time to wake up and empower people to be unique leaders. And it's time to empower every single human being to be a creative leader, because that's what we need nowadays with all this global changes and challenges that we're facing nowadays. So I would say, if there's something I would like for you to take away from my participation here, would be that see yourself as a leader, but as a leader who cares, who wants to have impact, because that's the key here, to impact lives in a positive way, and in a way that you foster that environment where everyone becomes a leader their own way.
This next question's for everyone, but we'll start again with you, Rosa. What's a leadership norm, something everyone knows to be true, that you've actually had to actively unlearn?
Okay, come again, I'm sorry.
What is a leadership norm that people think is actually true, but you've had to unlearn as a fact of leadership?
I think the fact that because I say so. We have to stop doing that, and I think a true leader is the one who takes into account their team. And I would like to stress this word, get a team. You have a team where you become a leader. And team means that we look after one another. And when we have the clear idea that being a leader is a huge responsibility and it's not just a title, that we're here to serve and serve with the heart and the mind, that makes a difference. I have this case scenario. I'm not gonna be very specific because I don't wanna give too much details, but I have this leader, and I work for this leader, and she was always imposing everything. And what happened? Everyone was like, I don't wanna go to work. I don't feel like, I don't feel my voice is being heard. I don't feel valued, and so forth. So then something changed, and her leadership approach changed, and everyone's happy now. And everyone is collaborating. Her staff feels encouraged to contribute to, and that's the key. And that's what Mauricio said. We need to become aware that we can make mistakes, and anyone can make mistakes, even the top leader. But the point is this: keep in mind we're human, and whenever we make a mistake, have the humility to say, I'm sorry, let's work this out.
One, same question. What's a leadership norm something everyone knows to be true, but is really untrue that you've had to actively unlearn?
That leaders know everything. I remember the first time I was promoted to director at T-Mobile, and I sat in a big conference room with VPs and our chief care officer, and they were just as clueless as anybody else on the things we were talking about. Everybody's asking questions around the table. How do we do this? How do we do that? So don't be intimidated by those conversations if you're looking to advance your own leadership career. Or as a leader, remember that it's not your job to know everything, even if you're starting a company or founding a company. You know, I think somebody earlier in the AI conversation talked about point of reference. That's extremely important. Again, if you go back to that situational leadership model, you could be the best, sports car mechanic in the world, but if somebody brings you a school bus that you've never worked on, you're not going to know what to do, and that's okay. So as you go on the path you go on from here, remember that as a leader, you don't have to have all the answers. It's important that you're able to inspire and motivate the team around you to achieve the same goal in which you're a part of that team. And two is, if you have leaders, give them some grace sometimes. If they don't have the answers, it's impossible to know them all.
Hashim?
Similar to what Rosa was saying, I'm the boss, you need to respect me and all that. And that's true, of course. Everyone deserves respect, leader, not leader, whoever deserves respect. But a story that comes to mind is once before a meeting began, I stepped out to the restroom or to make a phone call or something. And as I was walking back, I heard my team engaging in conversation naturally and for fun, like it was not related to what the meeting would be about. As I entered, the room went silent, and I know a lot of people might see that as a sign of respect, but to me it was more alarming than anything. Why is my team not comfortable with me? My team should be comfortable with me. And this did come from an overcorrection that came from before. I was like, you can't be too comfortable with me. Then my team went silent, and that's not a good thing. It's very important to be a collaborator, a moderator of collaboration. That is what leader means to me.
I like that, moderator of collaboration. Mauricio?
Pretty much, I agree with what Rosa, Juan, and Hashim has said. It's very important. A lot of leaders believe in the full autocracy. It's what I'm saying because this is the way it is. And it really discourages collaboration from the team. It doesn't empower anybody. And the people that don't adapt themselves because they're just autocratic and it has to be my way, I think that they lead by fear, and the people work because they have to work, but they don't derive any pleasure from it. And we all have to work, but we don't have to make it needlessly difficult. And there is a lot of leadership out there that make things needlessly difficult for you. And one other thing that I have seen is the lack of adaptability. There is no one size fits all. And as leadership, I used to always make the example of my children and hope that they don't get mad at me, but they're very different. And I realized early on that I had to lead them or manage them differently. What worked for Mark didn't work for Sandy. What worked for Sandy didn't work for Mark. And I found this out in my career where I started out at a very early age in leadership, that it was everybody is the same. And I thought that was fair. I was like, I'm treating everybody the same way. But that is not fair. We hear the golden rule, treat people as you would like to be treated. I believe that the golden rule should be treat people the way they want to be treated. And so I realized that in order to be an effective leader and to have the trust of my team, I had to adapt a little bit to their styles without compromising my core way of being and how I lead, but being cognizant that they have different needs. And in order to be heard and seen and felt like they're a valuable part of the team, you have to adapt. If you're not adapting to them, I don't think you're going to be a truly effective leader, and people are going to do what you tell them to do because they have to, not because they really understand the motivation and why we should be doing these things. And I think it has to be explained, like you said, and really work with the people that you work with instead of having them work for you. you work for them.
And Nathan, if you allow me, I would like to add to what Mauricio said. It's all about connection. And we need to care to connect to the people we work with. And connection begins with eye contact. Connection begins with how's your day? Connection means that you care, you show that you care for them and you take into consideration their needs.
Yeah, leadership is a service, right? One more question before we open it up to the audience. Can each of you just go down the row here, name a leader, living, historical, famous or not, whose style you wish more people would copy or implement in their day-to-day lives?
I
Mauricio, we
think
can start with you.
Eisenhower, you know, a lot of people didn't give him a lot of credit as a military leader. And, you know, he was not a combat leader. He'd never been on the front line. But there was a person, just like you said, that didn't know everything, but surrounded himself with people that actually knew what they were doing. He was the logistician, the tactician, the strategist, the one that put everything together. And I think that is real leadership. And of course, being the way I am and the way I think, I thought his warning when he left office about the military-industrial complex, having been a military person himself, is one of the most illuminating and important lessons that we should always take to heart, especially today.
Yeah, look where we are now. Juan?
My former CEO at T-Mobile, John Ledger, I think he showed the world how to have fun as a CEO. He had a lot of fun on the CNBC shows, probably cussed a lot more than he had to, but he had a very clear vision. He made a very clear path for each role at T-Mobile on how we contributed to that bigger goal for the company. And he truly meant what he said. He listened to our consumers, he listened to our employees, he shut up and he did what they said, and we were very successful because of it.
Rosa?
I would say Jesus Christ, because we need to be compassionate, we need to be humble, we need to be wise and assertive.
Hashim?
There's a man named Omar ibn al-Khattab. He is a religious leader, but also, or was a religious leader, but more so, or as much so, a leader of an empire in the early times, right? But something that really stood out was that he was a shepherd before he was a leader. He wore cloth. He would walk with a stick, as a shepherd does. This did not change when he became the leader of one of the largest empires at the time. He was one with the people. He did not think he was better than anyone else, but just guidance for the people. And I do think that it's super important to not just look at one leader and try to mock that style, but maybe try to take bits and pieces that apply best to your situation, maybe from Jesus Christ and from the CEO and previous leaders before and anyone you see in your life, and just apply that best as it does for your situation.
Yeah, I think we've all had a manager that we loved and hated, and like kind of take that away from us as we also step into those roles as well. I'm now going to open it up to the audience. Does anyone have any question for our panelists? Anyone? All right, we're going to end it with this last question then. If someone in this audience were to walk out of this room and change one thing about how they lead tomorrow, what do you hope it is?
I would think that they would like to, that they should be able to look at themselves differently, to be more objective of who they are and how they lead, and be honest about, do I have anything that I need to change? That this helped me see me in a different light, and how can I become a better leader because of this?
Be mindful of the decisions that you make for the people that you lead. An example I have right now is with AI growing, there is real possibilities that we have to change the way our team works. And because of that fact, we're looking to our BPOs, our contractors, for additional customer service employees, because the last thing I want to do is grow my internal team only to then be in a situation where I have to lay them off a year from now because of my poor decisions. So as we look to the work of the future, I want to make sure that the team I have now is taken care of and they'll be a part of that future, and we use other levers to make sure we get the work done now that we need to get done without impacting somebody's future later because of our poor decisions. So be mindful about the team, that the people that you lead, and the future that you're creating, not just for yourself, but for them as well.
Invest in yourself, in your well-being, in your growth, and becoming the leader your team needs, and become the leader that you're proud of.
Similarly, be the leader that you would want to be led by. You are a human just like anybody else. You would want to be led with compassion, with patience, and just be that kind of leader that everyone would appreciate.
All right, thank you all so much. Quick round of applause for our panelists. And I hope everyone sticks around. We have the Startup Texas Pitch Summit happening in about 30 minutes after this. Thank you.